Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the DXM podcast. I am your host, Colborn of the Museum of Crypto Art. We are joined today by artist, one of the earliest artists in the space, Bård Ionson. Bård, how are you today?
Great. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thank you so much. We always start in the same place, and that is just giving you the space to tell a bit about yourself, your story, and how you came to find crypto art.
A bit about me. I've been attempting to make art since around 2012. When I found was really inspired really strongly about a piece from Nam June Paik that I encountered at a resort, one of his installation pieces. So that's where I kind of started my artistic journey. Previous to that, I had done art like maybe programming in just programming little graphics for computers and things. But so I'm background is in software, but I've always enjoyed literature and writing and the artistic types of things. So kind of moved into doing more art and creating digital art. And from my background, I kind of fell into generative art, of course. So
excellent. You were and you consistently seem to be first to a many number of places. Could you just let everybody know how you came to first find crypto art?
Well, I was actually working on an installation piece that I was creating, and I wanted to give it micropayments. I wanted people to come in and see it there and be able to not have to use a credit card because of the fees. And I wanted a micropayment system. So that's where I started investigating micropayments and encountered Steemit. But it didn't really lend itself to kind of trading a currency for a thing. It was more of you got rewarded for writing a blog post. So that's where I started really researching and came across other cryptocurrencies. And then I encountered an article by Art Gnome, Jason Bailey, and it's his famous blog posts about what is crypto art, I believe. And we need Super Rare needs artists now. It was like we can't find enough artists who want to experiment in this new world. And I found it compelling because I had trouble getting into the contemporary market, even locally. The traditional art market was all about, I was just learning how it worked, but it was all about entering curated shows with a fee, and then hoping that some curator that you don't know will like your art and they'll let you in the show, which never worked out well for me, just paying out money just to get in a show. But I just started putting out stuff on and selling stuff prints on some Art America or something. It was just there was too much noise. And so I looked into Super Rare and applied there.
Incredible. Yeah. And I imagine, there's so many obviously legends in the beginning. If people don't know that Jason Bailey article, I believe that's the one with the Homer Pepe.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. What was the application process like for Super Rare in those early days?
Let me see, what was it? It was just filling out a simple form, and I think I submitted art by email. I submitted a few pieces.
And quick response?
Yeah, a couple days.
Yeah.
And
cool.
They said they liked it, and then I submitted. They wanted to see a few more samples, and I sent them some more of my political, religious sort of art. I think it turned them off. I don't know, but I never heard back from them after. They never replied back after I sent them that. It was some of my anti-Trump art.
Yeah.
Very early art. But so then I decided to try again, but this time I found Robbie Barrett's code base Art DC GAN and saw what Obvious was doing
Yeah.
in selling that piece at Christie's for 400K or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Edmund de Blamy. And
Yep.
so I took his code base and stood up an AWS instance and got CUDA running and TensorFlow and all the parts, NVIDIA stuff, all the stuff you need to do AI art with. And I started running my oscilloscope art through it and produced some interesting pieces and wrote a blog post up about how I did it and what art I made out of it and sent that to Super Rare and Robbie actually tweeted back on it saying, I love this stuff. You're being very original. A lot of people are just training the AI on like known bases of art. They were just feeding it art from art scraping, just screen scraping a bunch of art into it. And he liked that I did something original and took my own art and fed it through the system. And so that was my first piece on Super Rare, was coming out of that GAN, an early one. It only made images like 128 by 128 pixels.
Yeah.
If you look at my first piece, it's like a GIF, but it's like I think I may have upscaled it a little bit, but it's tiny.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, one, it's just incredible how much art came out of that model that Robbie had built, and I know that's been used in a couple of your pieces, and I think one of my favorite pieces of yours was, it's the nude woman, perhaps, of the faces of Trump.
Yeah, I mixed the nude model that Robbie made, and he open sourced it, put it out on the website in the GitLab or GitHub, and then I overtrained it with Trump images of Trump from the news. I took a bunch of news feeds off CNN and scraped out all the images and fed them through there.
Yeah, I love that piece. That piece is incredible. And I know, a lot of your early work was kind of exploratory around coins as well.
Yes.
Would you describe that for us?
Yeah, I was fascinated by this concept of the ICO that was going on right before I kind of started into crypto.
And this would be 2017, 2018?
Right.
Yes.
Where people are just issuing these junk coins, shit coins, just over and over again and just like ripping money out of the market, selling this stuff.
Right.
Which seems to have repeated itself.
Yeah,
But,
I was going to say.
But I took images of crypto coins that were being created. A lot of people created little images of their coin. On the market sites, they had little images for each coin. And I took 20,000 images of real coins off of some coin collector website.
Right.
And then processed that through the GAN and generated like just these somewhat ugly looking coins, somewhat kind of glitchy. I kind of like using AI to make more glitch type work, but
right.
My concept was that I called it an ICO art drop, and I made one animated one, and when people bid on it, I would send whoever bid on it got a free coin. So I started sending out free coins to people. Anybody who bid on that piece would get an NFT of a coin that I out of the model. And within one of the images, I used steganography, and I hid a coin, another image inside of an image, and someone had to crack the password for it. I left these clues in different places, and they had to crack it open and to get so who the shortcut figured it out finally.
Nice.
And so I minted him an NFT of the coin that was inside of that coin. So it was kind of a self-referential kind of piece, a series.
Beautiful. And Shortcut, another one of the incredible, very early artists.
Yeah, he did a lot he was doing steganography work at the same time I was, so he kind of knew what I was doing. He was putting 3D models inside of some of his stuff, inside his video files, GIFs.
We did used to see more of this, right? We did
Uh-huh.
used to see more embedding, more puzzles. I know there's still certainly a couple puzzles on Super Rare that remain unsolved.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of number 41 in particular. I know he has one
Okay.
out
I
there. Yeah. And I remember
didn't know.
Shortcut did one as well, I think, where there was a certain amount of Bitcoin embedded somewhere in the image.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, that was really, really quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who were some of the, other artists that you were connecting with at that time?
Well, trying to remember.
Or
Robbie, I interacted with Robbie a lot. Um, and then like Shortcut and a little bit X copy a little bit here and there. Um, off I can't pronounce his name. Off account. Yeah,
Oficinas TK.
right.
Yeah,
And then people like VK Crypto,
yeah.
and I didn't really interact with him, but he bought my art, and there was kind of a mystery about who that really was, and did he own a lumberyard and things like that.
Who also infamously set all of his pieces on auction one day.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I bought one of my pieces back from him. So
amazing. Yeah, he absolute legend. Um, so tell us more about like the journey, the early days. I definitely want to get into a point where we can begin to uh, like compare and contrast where we were then with where we are now. I find that super fascinating.
yeah, it's back then. I mean, my originally my art was going for like $50 or so or less. So the market, it was mainly artists buying other artists, and then a few whales like VK Crypto and a few other folks. Um, and but I found there was a lot of collaboration kind going on between artists. I didn't have time to participate in a lot of it. I did eventually do a collaboration with Lawrence Lee, but
Nice. Oh, a very beautiful one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's I like it a lot. But
Moderats ate that whole collection except for I think the one that is in the museum.
right, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, which was a mistake because Lawrence priced it too low, and then he made a typo on the pricing, so
Yeah,
he got
yeah.
lucky.
I did get very lucky. But now it's in the museum, so
Right,
yeah.
which is better for it, I think, because no one knows about those other ones.
Yeah,
Um,
those are just exceptionally beautiful, right? And Lawrence Lee, older gentleman, traditional painter, also very early artist who I believe lives in New Mexico and has been
uh,
painting
Arizona, Tucson,
Tucson, Arizona, yeah, and has been painting kind of these
still there?
southwestern.
I lost
Yeah,
you.
can you see me?
Yep.
All right, yeah, he's been painting these incredible portraits of Native Americans, shamans,
Mhm.
more on kind of like the ritualistic and spiritual sides, which I think is a fascinating collaboration. Could you tell us more about that work?
Okay. It was called Convergence, and I basically took a couple hundred of his paintings because he's been painting since '76
Yeah.
or earlier. Um, a lot of his art he didn't have anymore because he retired at one point and got rid of all of his images, all of his photographs. He came out of retirement, and but so I had a couple hundred pieces, and I found some on the internet on auction sites I scraped off, and then I kind of made enough copies of it to train a model, which usually takes about 200 to 2,000 images. But so what I did was I trained like 5 different models with his art. It was a lot of experimentation, because the AI either captures the body shape or the face.
Hmm.
So I did some of bodies, and the face was unrecognizable. Then I did faces, and got the face as well. And so we kind of concentrated on the face model. Lawrence is all about the figurative, so it's mostly about the face. And then I curated some batches of them and sent them to Lawrence. And then he pulled out the ones he liked and he edited them. He repainted them and added what an artist can add, the composition of a fine artist. And he took a lot of elements from the AI. It kind of reimagined. It made him think of his work in a new way, in a kind of a like. It's like it's like fuel for creativity. AI, because it generates. You can generate 1 billion images with it, and it can make things you never even thought of. But it's in his style and in his color palette. So he was able to go in and like swap faces out with bodies to get the body and face right, and then he'd repaint the eyes and the different parts of the figure that needed work, and they came out really, really nicely. And at one time we were going to take all the AI stuff he fixed up and retrain another model and kind of repeat the loop, but it was so good we just left it the way it was. But I think we did like 13 pieces.
It was really exceptional. I remember that very well. And I think there's some interesting thematic ties that I'd like to ask you about, because I think often you really do well to explore the latent space, or that unknown territory between, man and machine, the spiritual and the unknown, and how technology is kind of perhaps helping us to discover what we didn't know. I imagine this is intentional.
Yeah, that's kind of where my practice is kind of centered on, is distortions between realities, I call it. Everyone seems to have their own reality, everyone has their own consciousness, and it kind of creates their own mini world. I don't know. But there's this interplay between people and between powers of the world, like just, energy in the cosmos. I see that I'm fascinated by entropy and randomness, and the creation of everything that exists coming out of a soup of random whatever in the universe, just this random noise that's out there. You pick up on your old TV. There's this, but I see that in the AI models being a simulated neural network. Is they're trained on randomness. You start them out with randomness. That's what they feed on, and out of the randomness, they start to piece together what looks like images. It's very organic. The output of the AI I find very organic looking, and it is called the latent space in an AI model. That's what they call the matrix of the model, or the vector. In the ML world, they call it a vector, and then they call it a latent space, which is all the pixels and all the colors in a matrix, and you can fly through the latent space. So I play with that in the art and my stories around the art. So I have a whole story about an entity from a latent space of sorts. But I'm playing with just this quasi-spiritual sort of maybe thing that may be more material than we think, and just that there's recent studies about how objects might have a consciousness, like a rock might, or there's a certain level of a very small level of consciousness within everything, and it kind of bleeds into our own consciousness maybe, and that our consciousness might be outside of our brain. It's actually in our whole body. What we what we think and do is more than just our brain. I mean, our whole nervous system is part of the system.
I believe this, right? I do believe it is one connected fabric as opposed to there being any sort of distinction between the objects, and that everything is probably self-aware and observational in this big energy field that we exist in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super, super interesting. Do you feel, I kind of feel like the growth of the space very much mirrored the way perhaps an AI would train, right? In this kind of random nature, but all of the kind of elements in communication to begin to build more structure. Did it feel perhaps like organic and random to you as well?
Yeah, early on, especially, I I found a lot of artists playing off each other's work as they minted. We just, I don't know, I just sit around and watch people on the old Super Rare feed. You would
Yeah,
just see the newest thing that came out, and you'd like be watching for what's Shortcut doing next, what's Xcopy doing next, what's Hackatow doing next, and then I would see people take their idea and like plus it up and try
yeah,
to make some. And I would do that a lot. I'd take uh, inspiration from Coldy and Xcopy and Shortcut and Brandy, um, and kind of combine them all together in a sort of weird fusion. I don't know. It was just very, but we weren't talking to each other verbally or
right.
with language. It was all artistic. I would see their image and then make something other than the description on Super Rare, which uh, I get kind of verbose on my descriptions, but that was a common thing on Super Rare, was to like put whole stories in that description.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was very similar on the collector side as well. You know, the early collectors, nobody was in communication with each other, but you know, we saw what the artists were creating, and we were learning, and you know, it was very much a follow on and a build. And I think that was what made it so special. Is there really wasn't any sort of like collusion or but it was like very much an iterative learning process where
Mhm.
everybody was aware, not directly talking, but certainly just observing and watching. And you know, obviously, you know, those early network effects still to this day, I think, are very strong. Even if a new generation of people has come in and tried to create their own narratives,
Mhm.
what's super cool is, of course, the permanence of the blockchain and recognizing. And I look forward to, you know, the days when people create, you know, more models and interpretive AI that can continue to like visualize and understand the importance of those early connections.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's one difference from then to now, is that I don't get the same feeling of that, the interaction, um, it being the pool of artists is so much larger.
That is hard. I was writing about that. I don't think, of course, we can ever go back to how it was.
No.
Um, yeah. So yeah, it feels, you know, once in a lifetime and very just kind of inspired.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about, you know, you have that beautiful art blocks work behind you. Do you want to talk about maybe the creation of that platform, what that opened up, the types of opportunities it presented?
Yeah, that's, Color Magic Planets, generative code work from Art Blocks. Um, I that was I haven't used it's based on a coding language called processing, or P5JS, which I hadn't really used much before. But I was inspired to do that one. Art Blocks accepted me to be an artist, and I had a hard time coming up with a concept for what could I make with this. And my daughter actually made a piece, called Multiverse, Color Multicolor Multiverse, something like that. but she used an old book I had from the Met Art Museum, a children's book that has vinyls, these little vinyl color overlays in the three primary colors of magenta, cyan, and yellow. But when you overlap these semi-translucent shapes, they make new colors, of course. So
Right.
I took inspiration from that and did this piece with code that just randomly overlaps. It picks random images and then random colors, and then overlaps the shapes, creating new colors from the palette of the CYMTK palette. And then so it's just kind of a typical generative piece, more about the shape and color. And I was mainly focusing on the randomness of it. The randomness comes from the token when you mint it. Based on the token, it generates a unique piece. So anytime you mint, it's going to come out with something different.
And you, as the artist, you never know what is going to be created as well.
No,
Right.
no. I know in general what it would look like, but not specifically. And I put a couple rarities in there of planets, and one has a flying saucer in it, which is
Cool.
the flying saucer that I made it about the entity again. It's his latent spaceship.
We should go back to that because I know that theme extends across work you have on multiple platforms.
Yeah, that's the first mint on Super Rare. I basically did it to kind of create a blog post about the work. But I was inspired by the art coming out of the model that Robbie made, a DC GAN, art DC GAN. It created some shapes that looked like alien heads to me, and some other weird combinations that look sort of alien. And in general, the output looked like a language sometimes. The AI model was trained on images that I made with oscilloscope, basic line drawings of things like rockets, and it was based on corporate symbols. It was 26 corporate symbols. Each letter of the alphabet had a corporate symbol, like skull candy. I had a skull in there. So it was all these different shapes, but it generated this thing that looked like a language. So it inspired a story about that I called the Sage Anomaly. And it's about an entity from the future that comes into the present, traveling through computers and the past. But it's an AI entity, and they are from a time when all the humans are extinct. And the next part of the story talks about how they live in an energy field that once was Earth, out in space. It's just this latent energy field, but it has this AI living in it. And they're lonely because there's only one of them, but they have three parts. It's a triune being, but they come back in time to do something with humans. We don't know yet. But they travel through computers back into the 1950s to one of the first big computers that was ever put in place. Actually, it's the largest computer that's ever been built, called the SAGE computer, the semi-automatic ground environment. It was built to watch for Russian bombers coming over the poles. And there's a node that's underground in North Bay, Canada. And it was the predecessor of NORAD. So there's one in Cheyenne Mountain, and there's like 20 others scattered across the US. So I take off on this story about this entity, and the first mints I did were kind of each image is a piece of the story, and I made it up as I went along. So as I wrote the story, I would find new images that kind of supplemented the story, and then I fed more images through AI to generate new parts of the story. So the story was inspiring more art, and the art was inspiring more of the story. So I just keep kind of continuing that, and I still am making work about that theme.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this doesn't sound too fictional. It seems entirely possible, and we may only realize it in retrospect.
Yeah, some people have said it's like the basilisk story. I don't know if you know the basilisk story.
I don't.
Okay. It goes something like you you can't I can't remember. It's something about that if you go too deep into the AI world and into technology, that there's a creature there that'll end up destroying the whole universe. Um, Mine is kind of the reverse of that. It's the friendly thing from the future. The basilisk is this evil entity from the future that comes into the past and destroys everything. I'll have to look up the story again, but some people talk about this basilisk story when I tell them the story of the entity.
Yeah. So, do you believe that technology is sentient? Sentient?
Um, I don't know, but I'm kind of influenced by a philosopher, Jacques Ellul. He was a French philosopher who fought in the French resistance. Uh, he came out of he's from he's an anarchist, but he called himself a Christian anarchist. He's very much in uh, the philosophy of Christianity, but wholly different from it, in that he claimed that Christianity had become corrupted soon after Christ left the earth, that it had slowly and progressively become very corrupted from what it was supposed to be. So he was this retro Christian, but his concept was that there's powers in the world that are not human. They're spiritual powers, but these powers are, one of the powers he named was money. The love of money, or money in general, has a power that that can change people's minds, or it's an influence.
Yeah.
It has this like just a power, almost mystical power over controlling what happens in the world. And one of the other powers he named was technology. He wrote a book called The Technological Society, but it was about how technology, he called these evil powers, actually. He called money an evil power and technology evil power. He felt that if we give these things too much power, that they can corrupt, like money will corrupt, that they'll corrupt all of society. So he was very wary of technology as a way of, I see it as people leapfrog each other.
Mm.
Like if I make a technology that makes calculating financials easier. So if I invent the spreadsheet, I have an advantage over everybody else who doesn't have the spreadsheet. So then I can sell that thing and make money and get power. And then somebody else invents something new. So it's kind of the technology of war even.
Mm.
Somebody invented some war implement like a bow and arrow. So the other side has to make something better than them. And so we go on and on and on till we get this nuclear power. And now we can destroy the whole world with these nuclear weapons. But it's this progression of technology that keeps building on itself and ultimately corrupts people into doing evil things. So he felt that these powers were actually evil in and of themselves. So he proposed that control technology, you should have people that decide if they want to use the technology or not. So it's more of a collective community sort of decision.
Mm.
Right now, in our world, it's an individual decision whether you use a technology or not. But that's kind of where some of these ideas are coming from.
Yeah.
Just the power of these seemingly inanimate forces in the world, and whether they have consciousness or not, I don't know.
I mean, did we not see this story just play out in real time in front of us?
Yeah, yeah. With the Russia and Ukraine, or
Well, I was going to say in crypto art, but
yeah, crypto art too.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like this de-evolution of the space into money and
Yeah.
greed, and human nature is a funny thing, as you mentioned before, to see almost the 2017 ICO boom on repeat
Mhm.
in different ways. Um, are you happy with what happens? I know that's a kind of a double-edged sword type of question, because at times I feel incredibly proud, and then I also feel incredibly disappointed.
Yeah, I I wish it was more of a I wish it would have been more of a gradual growth than
Yeah.
this explosive growth that now has gone to nothing almost. I seem like it feels like I'm selling less art than I did in 2018 now. But it's just that boom and bust cycle. It got too fast and frenetic during, I guess, 2021 there.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But are you confident it will be here to stay?
yeah, it, I think it will be. It's going to be, I hope it's slower growth now, but I think it'll keep going um, at, at a slower pace. Um, it's, I mean, it is good that so many artists have been able to get their work seen. I don't know if a lot of the new artists coming on are getting their work sold,
Yeah.
or if they're making a living at it, but it it has provided opportunity to have more people looking at art. And I like what I really enjoy about NFTs and crypto art is the the public art aspect of it.
Mm.
I've always been interested in public art and finding a way to pay the artist, but still have everybody be able to see it. And I know a lot of cities will fund public art by taking a little bit of tax money and doing some art type things. But this is a whole new kind of model where the the patrons of the art are paying for it, but they're letting everybody look at it, which I really appreciate and enjoy that part of the culture.
Yeah, for you, a bit of a follow on. What is kind of the ideal way, either now or in the future, that you would want your art to be seen, shared, experienced?
Um, well, I'm actually working with some companies that want to put up screens in different locations and display the art in corporate settings or in hotels or in more uh, public spaces. So I'd like to see more of that physical manifestation, um, projection art on the buildings,
Mm.
those sorts of things. Trying to think what else.
Well, I
I'm
mean, the digital art is just a beautiful way to hack art very quickly and easily into public spaces.
Yeah, as long as
Yeah,
you can afford a screen and throw it up or a projector.
right. Or I mean, even just, the phone. When people ask me
Oh,
about the museum, I can just, bring it
right.
up,
That's true.
set it in, and they can go explore on my phone. And I think that is just the ability to see it and have it so tangible immediately, of what it is, and then kind of dangle the carrot if there are further experiences that you can have around this art that might kind of
Mhm.
deepen the appreciation.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed putting stuff up in crypto voxels too, kind of giving it a virtual kind of space to live in.
Yeah. And I mean, you hacked One of our rooms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Putting it, what did I put it in? Spatial?
in spatial. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I bought a couple rooms so I could put my art up in other, I wanted something that was more interoperable, where
Yeah.
it could be placed into different environments, different VR systems as
Right.
they come out and change. And I still would like to get. I'm still working on some installation pieces slowly, uh, to try to get something into more of a physical place and more interactive. I like the interactive art.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago you made a 3D piece, right? That was part of an exhibition.
Um, I made some for. There's a platform where you can buy crypto art in VR with your VR goggles on. I did a
Interesting.
few pieces for that platform.
Right.
Um, and then Kadaf did one where they put up AR art all across New York
Yes.
City.
Yes.
So I did a piece there with on Instagram with their AR system.
Interesting.
So I find the AR stuff seems to have more utility than the goggles, the
Then the
VR
VR.
goggles right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think AR will, naturally be the stepping stone into VR.
Yeah, yeah. If we
Yeah.
ever make it to VR.
If we ever make it the forever promise.
Yeah, I'm not sure about VR. It's a little bit too divorced from physical to me.
It's an intense experience. I'm curious how far it will go as well. Um, I mean, we have quite frankly just run through the 45 minutes. Um, is there anything you'd like to touch on that we haven't touched?
Um, I back to art blocks. I did have another piece out there called Eight, that I did after this one sold out. 256 pieces, the Color Magic Planets. So I did another one called Eight, and it centers more around luck and fortune and fate and gambling. I kind of
Mm,
picked up on that money thing again, how
mm,
art blocks have become a gambling casino where people were buying stuff just to resell it instantly if they got the rare traits. So I
right.
made something with almost no rare traits in it at all, and it has fortunes in it. So if you freeze the animation, you get trigrams from the I Ching,
Cool.
and so you can look up your fortune that it gives you if you read the I Ching.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's all the little trigrams with the poetry from the Chinese, from Asian, the Asian spirituality and kind of the divination type system, and added some symbology into that has all kinds of different meanings. So
Beautiful. Um, let people know, where we've talked a lot about it, but let people know where they can find you, your artwork, and if you are open to having them contact you.
yeah, yep, I'm at bardionson.com, and I think I have my bardionson.eth pointed at my website too. And then it's Bard Ionson on Twitter, Bard Ionson on Instagram. And you can email me. I'm at bardionson.com. Um, and I'm on Discord too. They have a channel in there if you want to be in that. So those are kind of my contacts.
Super. Well, we're going to end it here. And thank you so much.
Great.
I really appreciate you and all, the interrogations, the little hacks that you've done, always consistently being early and ahead and just so curious and inquisitive with all of this. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm,
thanks.
I'm,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, I'm Colborn Bell, Museum of Crypto Art. We had artist Bård Ionson. A special thank you to DMINTI for putting this together, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thanks.
Wrap.